Bet you guys thought I was kidding about doing a cooking stream, didn't you? Bet you guys thought I was kidding about doing a cooking stream. So, hello. Time to do a little bit of cooking with Null. Basically, today I'm going to make my recipe of bolognaise sauce, king sauce, from scratch, the way I like it. And that's basically what I'm going to do. Um, I will have to stop a little bit of the way through it because um, it does take about 4 hours at least to cook. That's why I want to get it started now. But, no, it's good. All right, so first thing we need to do is ingredient prep. So we need to get a mirepoix ready. So that's basically celery, carrot, and onion. So I do have all these ingredients. Let me collect them. It's going to be very interesting trying to do this wearing a headset. I'll tell you that right now. I'll just chuck my headset back on. All right, so first things first, we've got to peel the onions and bruise them along the way. So basically I need to make about 5 days worth of food. And I really don't, muck around too much. I make a lot of mess. I'm not like a traditional chef or anything like that. I just know how to cook what I like to eat. So bear with me while I do that. So 2 brown onions. I'm getting this out of the way first because I don't want to start crying all the time. Oh my god. Someone actually said hi. Oh hey, how you going? Yep, sure. Better grab that other onion. I gotta kind of keep all the mess here, so just because of the way that this stream is gonna work, because I'm attached to a freaking headset. So basically, give you a little bit of a history about bolognaise. It's kind of hunter's stew. So it's kind of whatever someone could get together. This is pretty close to like an authentic Italian recipe, but it's not authentic Italian because I am not Italian. I'll just admit that straight away. But, if I was trying to do it that way, I'd be using like sausage and like maybe some chorizo or like pepperoni or like, you know what I mean. But basically like an actual cured sausage for the meat rather than mince. But I am doing a little bit of an ode to the classics by basically using lamb, beef, and pork at the same time. I sometimes make it with kangaroo mince. I don't have fingernails, as you can obviously tell. Let's get rid of that. Perfect. All right. So one thing to keep in mind is that you're basically trying to keep it fairly rough. Like you're not trying to like be like a perfect French restaurant. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just get the onions out of the way. It's probably the most annoying part. I do have a cutting board, but I'm not going to try and use it on this surface. So just basically cutting, you know, like an onion in half, then cutting in lengths, then cutting into pieces. If you're lucky, I might even cut myself on stream. And I didn't grab any garlic, but I don't usually use it. Like sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. This time it's going to be no garlic. Okay, so there's our onion. Can go into our pan just there. Get rid of some mess. Still gonna have to clean up the end, but it's good to clean up as you go, because otherwise you're just gonna spend way too much time actually cleaning later. Carrots. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got a peeler somewhere. I don't know if I've actually washed it though. Maybe, maybe not. Oh my god, shock horror. I actually have a clean peeler. Just quickly peel those in the sink. So if you've got any questions, feel free, and feel free to chat or whatnot. I don't mind talking. I'm looking over my shoulder every now and then and seeing if someone is actually saying anything. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on going because this is basically my food for the next 4 or 5 days, at least. There's not much I can do about this, so I don't want to point the camera at my sink. My house isn't that clean. Okay, so carrots. Basically, same thing as with the onions. Take the heads off. So you don't want that in your food. Now, I usually take the tips off too. I don't know why. You don't really need to do that, but it's just in case they're getting a little bit old. Sometimes they might be getting just a little bit old, but yeah. And then the obligatory sip of port. Damn, I'm doing well. Even like nearly swallowed a hair there. Alright. So, the easiest way to cut small pieces of carrot is grab a paring knife, you get the thickest end, and basically you just lie it down, stick your point in the middle of it, like that, then just drag your knife down, or cut, depending on how sharp your knife is. So we're going to call that our large parts, and cut that off there. And now we got those two split down the middle nicely. The reason you want to do that with the big bits is because they're kind of equivalent to the smaller bits. So, yeah, it is what it is. And then, use Japanese technique. So, that's basically where you, I'll just put this on the hot plate where I won't cut myself. So, you go on angles. And as soon as the angle gets too acute, you just change the angle. But you want chunky bits of vegetables, because like this is home style, right? So that ends up with your carrot or whatnot, kind of being like that. Okay, that's fairly simple, but yeah, just to prove that I do actually eat vegetables occasionally. They can go into. Obviously, I'm not cooking yet because I'm just prepping. But like that's the thing. When you're prepping this, you can prep it and chuck it in the pan as you go. It's something can even an idiot like me can make. Yeah, want them chunky because this is going to be sitting in a pot for 4 hours. So, well, at least 2 hours. So, by the time that happens, this carrot is going to be very tender. The onion will have completely dissolved. It won't exist as a something you can actually detect anymore. Okay, so that's our carrot. Now what's the next thing you ask? Celery. So you want celery in it. So, basically the good thing about celery at the moment is if you're not willing, it's in season in Australia, so if you're not willing to pay the $6 a packet for a little packet of celery that's like that, like maybe like just a couple of pieces, then just buy this. And $3.50 for a whole bunch. And like, you know, it's extremely fresh. Look how fresh that is. You can, you can practically smell it. That's how fresh it is. Okay? It's a good thing about being in a country which actually has a decent climate for growing food. So, there's a couple of different ways I do this. One, this is a fuckload of celery and I'm not going to cook this all in this dish. So, I'm only going to need probably one. And make sure you get a good mix of inside and outside too. So like 1, 2, 3, probably go 4. Go that small one. And I'll leave that one there because that what happens is after you leave it in the fridge for a while, what actually happens is this will grow. Those will not wilt, they'll keep growing because it's still got the base. Technically it's still alive. But like you do want a little bit of the inside because that's kind of like the, I don't know, like the sweet portion of it, I suppose. Yeah. But about that much celery for how much carrot and onion that I just put in. And that's a lot of celery. It is. But you'll see what I do with it later. I'm not going to use all of those stalks. I'm going to use probably there, and I'm going to keep that for later for adding near the end. So any actual foliage I will be eating, and I will be putting in there, but I will be saving it in a bowl in the fridge until it's nearly finished, because I don't want to overcook that. And that is enough celery for me to survive on, if that was all I was eating, for probably about 3 days. Alright, so I'll just clean it up a little bit. Obviously you got your dirt and all that, like it's very fresh, so just get rid of that. My benches are pretty clean, by the way. I haven't done anything bad with it. And I will be cleaning up later. That's probably alright. I'm just getting the dirt off it. And when you get, like when you've got vegetables this fresh, and in Australia we're pretty good with our actual conditions. You'll notice I didn't bother about washing the onions because I peeled the outside layer off. I did peel the carrots in the sink, and I will be washing these just because, well, people have a habit of growing stuff in things that are probably not very good for you, so you want to wash them. But yeah, that smells absolutely fantastic. It smells almost as good as parsley. Like, that's how strong the actual smell is from it. That's how fresh it is. It smells that fresh. Pushed. Quickly go check chat because I heard someone go boop before. And I can just walk over here and do that because I got my computer sitting right next to my oven. Alright, so chuck that shit away. Now basically I'm going to keep these greens, like, so basically these lovely bits. I've got a bowl just over here I'm just going to grab to put that stuff in. So, and keep the tender stalks part as well, because like you want that for some texture when you're finished. And when it's this fresh, you don't need to worry too much about stringing. So like, one of the problems you have with store-bought celery, especially when it's not good, is these fibers. I can eat that, no problem. It's not woody, it's not stringy, it's like a vegetable, yeah? Like, it's actually not bad. But yeah, keep those for later, you're gonna need them. That's like part of the final dressing. Especially if you don't have any like fresh basil or anything like that. And I nearly never have access to fresh basil or anything like that, so got to make do with what you got. And that kind of goes into the whole ethos of the dish, which is basically, you know, it's a hunter's stew, which is basically use what you've got at hand, what's fresh, what's available. Oop, missed a bit. And you know, that's what a bolognese is. So there's really no way to make it wrong. There is no such thing as a classical bolognese. Well, I lie, there is. Italian mamas all around the world just basically went, shut the fuck up. Chuck that away, that's a bit fresh. Okay, take that off right there. But I'll just start cutting those up now. It won't take long. So same thing as the Japanese thing that you do with like the carrots. Only it's a lot easier to cut because it's not a carrot. And these will dissolve in the food, except for these dark green bits. So these dark green bits, they'll still be like kind of like that when you actually finished cooking. But like the lighter stuff, that's going to fall apart. So basically just cut it as roughly as you want, rough as guts. And these are going to provide texture when you're actually finished. Same as like basically when you're eating like good al dente pasta, really. You can probably tell I love my food. Never trust a skinny chef. Granted, I don't always eat the best type of food. This, I think, is probably one of the healthiest things that you can eat, especially because it's all fresh ingredients, apart from the canned tomatoes, and possibly the pork that I'm going to put in it. But, you know, this is healthy food, and if you don't have much money and you need to subsist on something for a couple of weeks, like I'm basically doing, because I need to get a lot of dental work done, basically, you know, it's perfect. I mean, I can eat this every single day. At least, well, once a day. I can't eat it for every meal, can I? But I usually only eat 1 or 2 meals a day, so perfect. Okay, so we're finally ready to start cooking. That goes in the fridge. You can cover it or not, it depends. Really depends what you want to do, but yeah, that's going in the fridge. But basically what I'm going to do now, I do have stoneware that's from, like, it's not stoneware, I wouldn't call it stoneware, but it's from Audi, so it's pretty decent quality, to be honest. Like when it comes to cookware, Audi makes pretty good cookware. My wok is from Audi, my frying pan is from Audi. I use a deep frying pan like this for doing bolognaise because it lets me fill it right up to the top and put a lid on it afterwards because I'm making enough to last for 5 days, and it will last for 5 days. Um, so for that I need a big pan, and I like to do it all in the one pot. So when I start doing my mirepoix or whatever, which is what this is, I use one big pot, essentially. You can use a like a saucepan, like a pot, like I don't know, a pot. Yeah, that one's pretty filthy, but I've got a much bigger one over there, like that. But it's because it's so thin, walled. What happens is it burns. So you want it to actually cook. You don't want it to like burn everything as it's going through the metal. So because this is nice and thick, like it's been sitting on a hot plate there, and we got 240 AC in Australia. Hey Americans, um, that you know, it just protects the food better, makes it taste better. So the next thing now I've got to wait. I'm going to drink some port and get out the other things I need for the next stage. Going to need some olive oil. So it's going to take quite a while for me to start adding like all the herbs and stuff that I usually add to it, but I'll start getting them out. This is probably going to spin you out. I use everything when I'm cooking this. One sec, I got to check chat. I just realized it exploded. Oh, hi. Sorry. One sec while I get this so I can actually read it. Everything's too bright. Oh, yeah, there we go. Oh, yeah, so tickers are like hanging around. And really got to do something about that. So how am I going to do that? I'll probably put up my, you can probably tell my screen's a little bit screwed at the moment. So I'm just going to put that there. And then I'm going to put up, oh, no, shit. I'm going to put that there. And maybe chuck it on performance mode or something. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now I can basically read what you're saying. Okay, that's good. Yeah, so it's starting to get hot. I don't want to chuck it straight on there because basically it just ends up like heating up too slow, I guess. Like I could heat up the pan first and like turn it into like a cook-off session, but yeah, it just gives me more control over it if I wait. So it's starting to get pretty hot. So anyway, how was your day? Like I mean, you said that obviously was it your sister is helping out with your family, and you don't need to do anything until the weekend. Hmm. That's always good. Hmm. Oh, And this stuff ain't bad, by the way. I know you're probably not really much of a fan of alcohol, but basically it's part of my culture. We all drink a lot. And I actually enjoy this. This isn't too bad. This is a nice port, which is basically fortified wine. All right. I can now feel the heat from behind me. Just chuck that back on the webcam. Probably wasn't even showing anything on that. I don't know. Well, that's probably a good thing. Okay, so it's starting to get hot. I'll start getting out some of the ingredients that I use. Different things get added at different times. So like, because it's going to be simmering for 3-4 hours, there's stuff that I add first, and there's stuff that I add at the end, because otherwise it loses all its potency. And there's stuff I add twice as well. But I'll start cutting out everything, because it's going to sit on the bench until I'm done, basically. So, first thing. Kashmiri chili powder. I like my spice. Okay. Next. Fennel seeds. So this is our lovely sort of fennel seeds. That gives you like a nice aniseed flavor. The next thing, I basically put everything in this. That's why it's a family recipe. Well, that's why it's my recipe. Ginger, dried ginger. Chinese 5-spice. Mint. Dried basil. Oh no, I'm out of rosemary. God, I hope I'm not. Tarragon, because I'm using 3 different types of meat. So, it's got pork in it, it's got lamb in it, and it's got beef in it. I sometimes make it with kangaroo, sometimes I make it with chicken, sometimes I make it with turkey. A little bit of tarragon goes a long way, but just a little bit, because it's not poultry, this one, so only a little bit, right? Coriander. I really need to get some more because it's starting to get a little bit old, but and it's also a bit redundant considering I've got the Kashmiri chili powder, but I'm just going to fix it up a little bit. It's a little bit solid. Sweet Hungarian paprika. This stuff is liquid gold. Well, powdery gold. Anyway, but there we go. My cat just decided to walk under me. He's going to be annoyed at me for the rest of the day now. Sorry, Tick Tick. Tick Tick Tick. I weigh over 80 kilos. What do you expect? Don't get under my feet. Anyway. Rosemary leaves. Like rosemary in general. So I do have some rosemary. I won't need to use this one. I've got plenty of celery. But sometimes, if I don't have celery, and I'm making it without a mirepoix, I won't use celery, but I'll use celery salt instead. Okay? Vaporizer nicotine. Just kidding. I'm not putting that in. That's definitely going in there. Okay, I'm nearly there. I've nearly run out of the herbs that I use. I don't use cumin. Don't use that. Oh, yep. Garam masala. If you have never added just a tiny bit of garam masala into your bolognaise, you are missing out. It is the best thing ever. And like that's the thing about this dish, is that it's the combination of everything you've got in the kitchen, like literally, that works together. And I've done this enough to know what works together. So that one's definitely going in with what I've already put there. And that's going on there now. So I've got I'm about 2/3 of the way through the herbs. Like my bolognese literally has over 30 ingredients. Okay, so it's getting nice and hot. So Australian extra virgin olive oil, or like any decent extra virgin olive oil. Um, I don't know if you could actually call this extra virgin olive oil because I know from experience that extra virgin olive oil isn't clear, and this stuff is. But close enough. I mean, if you can't afford the good stuff, it's good enough. So basically, at this stage, probably a good whack of it. And you'll probably hear over my mic soon that it's already started like hissing instantly after me putting that pan on. Right? So that's a good thing about Australian electric stoves versus American electric stoves, is that ours are actually a lot better than American ones. So you don't need gas. You can do this without gas. Next thing I'm going to need is... Now, how many people remember this? I sure do. But basically, you got to stir that about every minute or two now, at least, just to stop it from burning. You don't want it to burn, you just want it to caramelize a little bit. Like, to be honest, if you want to do it, like, spectacularly, you don't even want it to caramelize at all. But I've got to get the rest of my herbs, so that's why I left it at the last minute. Oregano, by the way. It's called oregano, not oregano. Potato, I suppose, but I don't know, I'm an Aussie, so... I need a little bit more time. Who the fuck am I, Lindy Beige? Get that shit back in the cupboard. But I am a bit of a sage. Tiny bit of mustard. Like as in powdered mustard from Keen's. It's kind of like the curry version of mustard. It's like a powdered version. That's proper like mustard powder, not the shit you buy in those little packets like the ones I've been showing you. That's the stuff. And not just that, but also like actual curry powder from like same like the actual Keen's curry powder. Like I don't know, but I don't know. I grew up in a Commonwealth country, all right? It's the same in Japan, it's the same in every other country in Asia. So we're just basically sweating this off. I lost a piece of carrot. Oh no! Carrot down! And now that it's there, I'm going to turn it right down to about 3. Because you want to do this slowly, you don't want to do it quickly. And I don't even have it fully on the hot plate either. This will reduce right down by the time we're done. So I'm just going to keep on stirring it until the temperature goes down a little bit. By stirring it, you keep the temperature down. That's one thing. Meanwhile, all that onion there is starting to... It's not translucent yet, mostly. Like, some of it is, but some of it's not, because it's country style. So you just want to keep on stirring it so that it doesn't burn. You don't want it to stick to the bottom and start burning. Because it does have a nice, sweet, sort of like acrid-y flavor to it. But, like, for the whole point of a mirepoix, you don't want it to caramelize. This isn't Spanish cooking, okay? This is, like, more Italian. So, I'm actually going to take that off the heat a bit. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to leave that until that cools down a bit. What else we got? No Cajun seasoning. That's a bad idea. Already got rosemary. No cinnamon, because I'm not Lindy Beige. No turmeric. Alright. Aha! Okay. No. Paprika. Okay, pepper. Okay. So that's basically everything that I'm going to be adding to it. So, apart from white pepper, Himalayan salt, cracked black pepper, and if you have a close look at this, see all the red pepper in it? That's because I actually buy the red pepper individually, and I add it. So when you get it like a mixed pepper packet, it never has enough of that red pepper. And that red pepper has got so much sweet flavor in it. Like, it's fruity. It's the best way to put it. So I always get a packet of red pepper and add it to my mixed pepper in my cracked pepper. Pro tip. So that's all my herbs. I'll just do a quick count. So, just using like the herbs that I'm not even talking olives or anchovies or anything else like that yet. I'm just talking herbs. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21 herbs. And I'm pretty sure that the Sri Lankan chili powder has about 5 in it. Like fenugreek and other stuff like that. So, it's good. You just gotta know how to use it. Anyway, I'm gonna go shit talk on chat for a little bit. So, basically, that's the basis of your dish. It's the most important sort of ingredient. The reason why? It thickens it. It also makes it healthy, I suppose. If you're just eating tomato juice with meat, yes, it's kind of healthy. You get some of the lycopene and all that sort of stuff. But like when it's got carrots, you got your orange, your carotenoin, or whatever it is. You got your celery, and celery is actually very healthy for you. You can eat that on keto. Then you've got your onion. Onion's very good for your immune system. It's good for digestion. You should always use it where possible. And yeah, so sorry, I don't know. I'm drinking port. What can I say? At least I'm not drinking vodka. Have you ever seen How I Met Your Mother? So basically all I'm doing at the moment is, and the longer that you make it, the longer that this takes, the better that it is. So you want to, you want this to take like half an hour at least, or like an hour, just to do this part, right? You don't want it to burn. You just want it to simmer in olive oil, essentially. And that releases all the flavor and all the good oils and stuff from what you're actually cooking. And like, if you want caramelization, you can go for that. I mean, I don't think it's really necessary. And this is coming from someone who absolutely fucking loves bolognaise. Like, and a lot of Americans, I don't know, like, I think a lot of Americans might be watching this and going like, this isn't spaghetti. Because it's not. It's not spaghetti, it's bolognese. There's a huge difference between spaghetti and bolognese. Um, and yeah, my first partner, her family were Croatian, like European, and I learnt so much about cooking from living with her, and also for a period I was living with her grandparents. I was actually living with her grandparents. They taught me how to make homemade fucking Croatian food. Like we're talking like Jarello and cabbage rolls and all that sort of shit. And I fucking loved it. It was fucking delicious. You know, like a normal sort of breakfast there would be a slice of toast with some cream cheese and some salami on it. Like that was your breakfast. Like that's a good breakfast. Not fucking eggs and bacon and fucking mushrooms and sausage and fucking ham and all this other shit that's gonna wreck your heart. I mean, you know, like a couple of pieces of toast with some salami and some cream cheese on it. You got your calcium, you know, you got some like preservatives to keep you fresh. You've got some meat to make your breath smell good. Not. Um, and yeah, some bread, which is the carbohydrates. But yeah, like nothing really too like major. And like as I said, like Dorello, you know, it'd be like Dorello cooked, slow cooked in a pot until it's soft, and then seared. So a Dorello is actually yearling sirloin of beef. So it's like a strip of beef that's like, I don't know, how do I get the perspective right in this shot? Like, so my head, probably about somewhere about there long, and about that round, and like goes from skinny to like that large. And all you do is you cut little slices of steak out of it. It's like a little, it's like a steak, but it's not. Yeah, it's like roast meat. So like imagine eating roast every single day. That's basically what their diet was. It was great. It was fucking fantastic. And then after dinner, me and her grandfather would sit there like drinking rakia, you know, peach brandy, 60 fucking percent alcohol. That's like 180 proof or something. We'd get fucking totaled. Next day we'd be fine because of the diet. You know, you probably realize why I associate, and I actually, you know, like have a lot of sympathy for like the Ukrainians and stuff because I know a lot of East Europeans, and they taught me how to make some pretty fucking good food. Though this is my own personal recipe, not theirs. Well, that's right. We're not allowed to swear. We're on YouTube. Uh-oh, look, we got a bit of caramelization. Tiny, tiny bit of caramelization. We're nearly done. So that's basically nearly at the stage where I've got to actually put other stuff in. Spotted the first bit of caramelization. Now, as I said, I don't want to cook the celery too much because I want that to still be textured when it actually gets to the end. So what I'm doing at the moment is keeping the temperature down low enough that the onion gets softened and the carrot begins to get softened, but the celery is still quite hard. And yeah, so I'll run and grab another couple of ingredients in my vape because I haven't had any nicotine in a while and I'm starting to get a bit antsy. So, any Italian mama will tell you, you must use a certain brand of tin tomatoes from Italy. I'm like, no. Australian green, crushed tomatoes, vine ripened. That's all you need. Two of these tins, two of these bad boys. So what I just put in there, which like you probably saw the quantity, like you know how much is actually in the pan. Okay. These are 810 gram tins. I'm not going to convert that into freedom units because I don't work in freedom units. I work in Australian units, which are better than freedom units. Get with it. Okay, so that's a whole lot of tomato, guys. It's nearly 2 kilograms worth of tomato. Okay, don't use passata. Use proper tin tomato from a good region that's local and fresh. Doesn't matter if it's from overseas, as long as it's maybe, I suppose, as long as it's vine ripened. Okay? Because there's just too much GMO fucking tomato out in the market these days. And it's also fucking tasteless. Because they grow it. The way I used to make this, what I used to do was I would go out into the garden and I'd grab 12 or 14 tomatoes and I'll cut them up by hand and then I would reduce them down into this. Obviously, I don't have the time to do that today, but that's how I used to make it. I used to make this with fresh tomatoes. So you can make it with fresh tomatoes. I've done it plenty of times before. But there's nothing wrong with using tins. And especially if they're like locally grown, and as I said, at least vine ripened. Okay. And this is right. So this is crushed. Don't get passata or something like that, because you'll pay too much for it. It's cheaper to just get it tinned. And back in the day when it was cheaper to get tomatoes fresh, it was better to get it fresh. But don't believe people who say that tins are supposed to be better. If it's fresh, the only thing you have to do is cook it for 2 hours longer. That's it. You've got to reduce it down a little bit more. Okay, so that's perfect. That's the sort of consistency that I want it when I'm making it. So basically, chuck this on a spoon. It's probably going to drip oil on the floor. I don't care. Clean it later. So, relatively translucent onion. Slightly cooked carrot, slightly cooked celery. That's exactly how you want it. Okay? So if I eat that celery right now, it's still got a crunch to it. And so does the carrot. But the onion is cooked. So, in we go. Now it becomes more fun. So this is where we need to start thinking about herbs and like what order they go in. You don't put everything in at the same time. You leave pepper and stuff for last. But one thing you don't skimp on is you got to use the chili powder first. So, and that's one reason why you don't want to caramelize it, because it's going to add a lot of color to it when you add this. So, I like to guesstimate about. I guesstimate. I don't use measurements usually when I'm cooking, but I'll do it for you guys. So, if I've got Kashmiri chili powder, probably about 2 of those, roughly. Like, just to add a bit of spice to it. I'm just going to clean that up because otherwise it's going to become a pain in the ass later on. It was a bit warm when I got home today, so I've got a fan blowing from the side as well over there as well. Because otherwise, why would I sit in front of a hot stove? Alright, so chili powder, mustard powder, so about that much. Not much, like so just a bit, maybe a bit. Sorry, I'm making enough for 5 days. A little bit of white pepper. At this stage, white pepper is fine, because white pepper is, like, it's more of like a flavor thing. So I'll just stir that in so that it starts cooking. A little bit of, so that's mustard powder, white pepper, garam masala, that's the next one. So just about a teaspoon's worth, really. No, not much, like maybe about a teaspoon. So if you're doing it for like less than 5 days, then you only got to use a very little amount. But you'd be surprised how much flavor it adds to it at the end. Ginger, that goes in now. So probably about, again, about a teaspoon worth. Sage, yeah, sage goes in now. Basically all the powdery things, right? Things that are like a powder. Tarragon, because as I said, this is more of like a nuance on it. So you don't need much. Again, just about a teaspoon. You notice I'm leaving all the important things like basil, oregano, and all that stuff for later. So, thyme, yes, goes in now. About 2 teaspoons worth for what I'm cooking, that is. Rosemary, about 2 teaspoons worth. A little bit more. Fennel. Fennel can be very overpowering, so only about a teaspoon's worth. Coriander. If you don't want it to overpower the dish, add it now and add about a teaspoon's worth. Mint. Because why not? We got all that chili in there, right? A teaspoon. So what have we got left? We've got basil, oregano, paprika, and Chinese 5-spice. So I'll leave the basil and the oregano, as well as the black pepper with the red pepper and the salt. They go in last. But yeah, paprika can go in now. About maybe 2 teaspoons worth, and that's actually getting pretty old, so I don't even, I'm just using it to get rid of it basically. So maybe about 2. And Chinese 5-spice. Now this one you got to be really careful about. So probably about just a teaspoon's worth. Not much. Don't want much of it. Okay, so that's all of that used. That's done. We're done with that now. That's it. So basically now we want to turn the heat up a little bit. Like basically on electric stove, that's basically turning up to full until you can hear it. And then turning it back down 1 or 2. Stir it in. Oh, also, by the way, I'd put garlic powder in now if I had it. Or garlic, like fresh garlic, I would have put that in at the start. But basically, what I'm doing is converting this from being a bolognaise with a mirepoix into a curry, right? So basically, what I want to do now is, without burning everything too much, burning it at all, hopefully, I just want to bring it up till it's sizzling and turn it around for a little bit. I'll quickly annoy chat for a second while I'm doing that. It will take a little bit to come up. So the next parts are pretty self-explanatory. I'll still try to explain them as best as possible. So, and you probably won't be able to hear as well because I don't have like the best mic or anything to be able to do like a full what would you call it, a an ASMR stream, ASMR or whatever. But I'll move my mic a little bit closer so you can probably hear it. Unfortunately, I can't make it so that you can smell it. Oh, that smells good. Really good. I had to get new batteries for my vape because the bottom keeps on popping up. And I dropped a battery and its voltage went low. So I'm like, uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. That was 30 bucks I didn't need to spend. So trying to save money to get my teeth fixed. And I've got to spend about, next week I'm going to be about $600 down. Like 600 bucks. Imagine if you could spend 600 bucks a week. I can't imagine that. I gotta save my money to do this shit. Okay, so all that's happening now is that those, oh my god, the fragrance. Those herbs and stuff are just like frying off a little bit. And it's not burning the ingredients. It's not caramelizing them, so they're still sweet, right? So if you start burning onion, it starts getting like kind of like an acrid flavor. And when you're doing this with these herbs, it's just doing it with the herbs. It's not actually cooking what the herbs are on. And as I said, you know, like it reduced down a lot, which it has. So basically a lot of things are going to happen very quick, very soon at the moment. So it's starting to smoke a little bit. I don't need to put any salt in because I've already put basically, as Uncle Roger would say, a not adequate amount of MSG into it. And by the way, MSG, there's nothing wrong with MSG. It's monosodium glutamate, which means it's got an ion of sodium with a thing of glutamate with it. So it's salt mixed with glutamates, which is exactly what I'll be adding to it in a minute with more tomatoes. So it just makes it even better. Okay? So I don't need to add salt. It's already got plenty of salt. Yep. Okay, it's hit the right smell now. Okay. So the bottom, basically, the herbs are starting to char a little bit on the bottom. So now in goes our tomatoes. Now for each can of tomato, you need 1 can of water. But because I'll be using milk later, I'll only be using 1. If you're not using milk, you should be using milk if it's a king sauce. So if it's a proper bolognaise, you should be using milk. If you're using milk, half the amount of water. If you're not using milk, use 2 cans. And by the way, waste not, want not. So basically right now, all you want to do is bring it up to a very, very, very light simmer. So you probably notice that like my proportions are like basically perfect. Like that's because I've done this many, many times before. And I'm just mixing everything in now, getting everything off the bottom of the pan so it doesn't burn. And I'll keep on being like this until it comes back up till I can see a bubble. As soon as I can see a bubble, the heat goes right back down. So right now I'm on heat 6, which is basically max strength on my stove. I'll probably turn it down to about 2. Right. If it's on an American stove, it's probably about 1. No, wait, no, it'd be about 3, wouldn't it? I don't know. You'll see what I mean. You got to remember that there's going to be a full can of milk, or basically a full liter of milk going into this later. So you want to leave a little bit of room at the top, and you'll want to reduce it down a little bit. To reduce it down will take about 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. And you only add the milk in the last half an hour to an hour before you actually finish. Including the oregano and the basil. So like we're nearly done now. But there's one more important part. At this stage is also when you add any alcohol. So if you're going to use something like wine, or like a red wine or port or anything like that, if you're using wine, probably want to use about like 2 cups maybe for the amount that I've just done. If you're using something strong like port, one cup. Like that's all you need, really. So 1 cup for me. Add another cup later. Just kidding, no, it goes in the food. Come on. Okay, so got our lovely port. We have a measuring cup. And by the way, this is Australian port, so there's nothing wrong with it being in a cask. We invented it. It's actually better than being in a bottle for some of the things. Especially if you're cooking with it. So, 1 Australian cup, by the way, is 250 mils. I don't know what an American cup is. Yeah, I'm going to bring that back up to a bubble, as I said. So just till it's just bubbling, because it's got to reduce down about that much until I can actually put the milk in. But when I do put the milk in, it's going to be right up the top, like very close to it. Look at that. Look how glossy it is. Look how rich it is. Now there are other ingredients that I put in. I like Sicilian sort of stuff, and as I said, I knew some Eastern European people, creations and whatnot. I like my olives. Greeks love their olives, all that sort of stuff as well. So I do add Kalamata olives and anchovies and oyster sauce and a Worcestershire sauce and some other things near the end. But I don't do that until it's near the end. I do that before I put the milk in, because right now, all I'm trying to do is get that, which is what it is, to develop its flavor. Okay, so that's going to be about, my imaginary wristwatch tells me it's going to be in about 2.5, 3 hours, right? But I'm going to stay on stream until I get this simmering, and then I'll start talking shit in chat until it's ready for me to do the rest of the stream. And then I'll have to move everything back over here again. Maybe I can play some Subnautica or something for 2 hours or 3 hours while I'm waiting for it to cook. Just checking to make sure there's nothing stuck to the sides of the bottom. Will burn. It's going to take quite a while for this to start bubbling, because I just cancelled out a lot of the heat. If I check the temperature, it's lukewarm. A little bit spicy, a little bit tasty. Nice. But still doesn't have the flavor that I expect it to have after 2-3 hours. You could not eat it like this. Well, technically, you could. This is technically what most Americans think spaghetti is. You need to leave it for at least 3 hours. If you ate it like this right now, especially with all the things that are added into it, it would taste horrible. You have to let it wait. You have to let it cook. And then if you don't do that, it's not going to taste good. But if you do, it'll taste fantastic. I fucking guarantee it. I know, because I've been eating it for 5 days. I made it, no, just kidding. Last week I ate it for 5 days. I made it with kangaroo mints instead. Speaking of which, I need to get the mints in the fridge. And I need to take it back out of the fridge again in about 2.5 hours. So, I'll show you the meat that I'll use with it while I'm waiting for it to start bubbling. Yeah, that's just for me when I get peckish. Keto friendly. This definitely is not keto friendly. Okay. So all I'm going to be adding is 500 grams of lamb mince and 500 grams of pork and beef mince. And that's all the meat that's going to go into it. Because by the time that meat goes in, like, I'll be adding it after about an hour and a half. So that's the part that's going to get missed. One thing with it is that it's got to reach a high enough temperature for the meat to actually cook. So there's always a bit of a debate about whether or not you add it at the start or you add it near the end. I think personally you should add it near the start. I think you should fry it off a little bit and all that. But if you're making something that's going to be succulent and like basically nice and tender, you want to add it around about now. And that's why I left a little bit of space at the top. So basically, starting to bubble right all the way down. That was the pork and the beef. Because lamb can be added later. But you basically at this stage want to get it at least in there so that it's starting to cook. Otherwise it's bad. You can chuck it in earlier, but I just kind of wanted to show off. Because, did you see me use a measuring cup or anything earlier? Apart from for the actual, you know, for the port. So it depends what type of meat you're using. If you're using something like kangaroo, which either goes really well with being cooked ultra fast or ultra slow, you put it in right at the start or right at the end. If you're using something like beef or pork, you know, like around about now or before I put the tomato sauce in is about the right time. Something like lamb, it's in between kangaroo and pork and beef. You want to add it in about when there's still about a third of the way to go. Because it's got a lot of fat in it, man. And it's quite a strong flavor as well. So if that's what you're aiming for, if you're trying to get a good flavor out of it, then you add it later. So I'm basically just breaking up all the lamb. Got it bubbling first so that when I chuck it in there, it will start cooking straight away. And I will put the lid on for a little bit to keep the heat in there so it does cook properly because it's got pork in it. But for the lamb, I don't need to worry about that. Like, you can eat that raw. You can't eat that raw. It's got to be cooked. And like, as I said, like, what you're trying to do with this is you're not trying to make the meat tough by, like, giving it caramelization or anything like that. You're trying to keep it soft so that after a couple of hours it's falling apart. Like, even mince can fall apart if you do it right. And you just got to make sure that when you first add it, that you always break it up as much as possible while it's initially cooking, because that breaks it up into the smaller fragments. And every 20 minutes or so, you got to repeat this for the next 4 hours. And that's one reason why when I added the carrot and the celery, I did chop it really fine and also didn't overcook it, because it's going to get bashed around a little bit as I'm doing this. Whereas our friend in Indonesia or Malaysia would like to say, give it a good old rub. Oop, spillage. Already tastes great. All right. Let's see if I can move my shit back over there without disconnecting everything. I'm so tempted to just lick that off the oven or the stovetop. Trust me, it's easier to clean now than if you leave it. Probably the most boring thing ever, but maybe you learn a couple of things. I'll give that 20 minutes at that setting with the lid on, and then I'll go and do the whole stir thing essentially. Anyway, I'm gonna move all my shit back over now. I'll end the stream here. That is how you make enough bolognese to last you for 5 days. I'm not even finished yet. So I'll see you again in 2 or 3 hours. If you like gaming, I'll see you again in about 10 minutes. So